We are live.
Hey folks, Pam back from Down for Paws here with Scott. So this week, another interesting topic. So last week we talked a little bit about how to find the perfect dog trainer for your family. And this week we're taking a step further and talking about the different training methods that comes along with dog training. Because Scott, there are tons of methods out there. It is
Yes.
bad enough when you look at Google and you start to search it, it can get pretty overwhelming. And
Yeah.
so what I wanted to do is kind of go through a few of them so people can kind of have opportunity to kind of listen to them and see what kind of methods work best for their family based on, me going through them. So we can go ahead and get started. So the most popular training style is positive reinforcement. Training method, and what that means is rewarding your dog for good behavior. And so you want to use, and so with this style of training, it includes using treats and praise for rewards and stuff like that. So if your dog does something and does a sit, you can give them a treat, or you can give them a reward, or you can even use play as a form of reward. But basically, it's using all things as positive encouragement, just like us. If we do something great at work, if we get a reward for it, we obviously would want to do more so of it, just so we can get more rewards. So dogs are no different. So the number one technique is generally positive reinforcement, praises, and rewards and association, building that emotional association I talked about before with dogs through that positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
The next one is science-based training. And that one, I would say if you're gonna, that one gets kind of touchy just because science changes every day. And it's based on research. So if you're looking up training styles based on a science-based method, just be wary that it could change daily. So you want to be abreast of it. And usually that method we kind of leave to the trainers that are certified, just because it's a lot less, it's more easier for them to understand. But doesn't mean that you can't go about it yourself or even do the research just to make sure that, hey, this is something, what is it? That's not, what is the word I'm looking for? It's not dangerous, but something that's not healthy, but I'll find the word later, but for your dog. So basically that's the science-based method of it all. And the type of training I do is positive reinforcement. But again, they all kind of fall under a different umbrella, but when you're training, you kind of use a little bit of all of it, to be honest, but just knowing the different techniques off top is beneficial. There's also a model rival training method, and that training relies on that you're learning through observation. And I talk to my clients about this all the time, that dogs learn by doing and seeing you do things. So the dogs will mimic that behavior. So for instance, if a human's completing a task or scolding them for unwanted behavior, then they'll kind of learn to like hide and stuff like that. But again, if a human's rewarding them for good behavior, and we're talking about the human here, nothing else, like how they're acting around the dog, then a dog kind of plays off that. And so that's another way that you can kind of use training as a method. Not training as a method. That's another method that you can use for training using yourself to kind of build that association and training those commands as well. The next one is relationship-based training. And so what that means is the same thing. Dogs and humans together, them learning from the relationship they have with you. So if you have a dog that's like really clingy and likes being with you, that's what we call like a relationship-based training. The same thing, they're kind of following along with everything that you do, and they're kind of learning from you. And also, is when you want to learn how to read your dog's body language, that's always a big one, especially if you're trying to build a relationship with your dog. And I do discuss that with my clients. I kind of give them that. I think I did it in my first live, but the doggy body language handout, I kind of go through that with them, because I told people that's the easiest way you can kind of speak to your dog, is understanding their body language. And I always tell folks, most of you guys know when your dogs are speaking to you, because they'll come up to you and sit, and without them even talking to you, you'll know like, oh, Fido wants a treat, or Fido wants to do something, and then you can kind of give them what they need. But that's the same way them building a relationship and build a relationship with you just by reading through their body language.
Yeah.
Another one, clicker training, is pretty popular, and that goes along of the model of positive reinforcement. But clicker training is used more for precision. So a lot of times you'll see people walking around with a little box. I should have brought one up here to show you guys, but essentially it's a little box that clicks really loud. And so it kind of keeps your dog's attention. So, you ask them to sit. Instead of saying yes as a marker word, you would click the clicker, and that would be like the precision marker. So when the dog sits, as soon as they sit, you click, and then you give them the treat. So that's a pretty popular training too, if you're working with precision, and it gives you the exact signal to the dog as when you want them to do something. Have you heard of clicker training? Some people have, some people haven't.
I haven't tried it myself, but we ended up using we ended up using the word yes, like you had mentioned, instead of the clicker. Just I don't think we ever picked one up, so we just ended up using the word commands as mainly the markers for when they're doing when he's doing something correct, or when we want to sort of like associate something with the treat and that sort of thing. But I've heard people have, some people like it, some people don't, but when people do use it, they can have like really good success with it too. It just depends on, as always, if you put in the work and that sort of thing too, right? So.
Exactly. So I find that clicker training is one of those things that either people know about it or they don't. But if you're ever interested and you're working with a trainer, your trainer would know about the clicker training if you have the positive reinforcement trainer like myself. But most trainers will know about it either way, so you can ask them about it. So moving on to the next model. The next model is the alpha dog or dominance model, and that relies on the dog's instinctual pack mentality. And so they create a relationship of submission and dominance. So what that means is that the pack kind of follows the hierarchy. So if you have you only have one dog, right, Scott?
Only one dog, yeah.
Okay. So if
you have a couple dogs though, right?
Yep. No, I have two dogs. Yep. And one's the alpha and one's not so alpha. And so you'll notice if you have multiple dogs in a household, and say if you're feeding them food, you'll notice some dogs may fall back a little bit, and other dogs may push forward to kind of get that food. And they could be hungry, but most of the time there's like a hierarchy that you just don't know about. And so you can kind of tell the pecking order based on who goes first to everything. And this is the same thing which I talk to my clients about. If they have, they're like, oh, I have a puppy, but then my neighbor has a dog that's 5 years old. I'm like, oh, that's great, because the dog's more mature. Even, and then the ranks in hierarchy too. And so if the dog's more mature and they're hanging around that dog, they're going to learn from that dog as well. But if the dog has bad behavior, the dog's going to learn bad behavior as well. So just make sure the same thing with your kids, folks. Your dogs are hanging out with great people. Great dogs, because they will pick up on bad behaviors as well. But that's how the alpha dog dominance works, just having them hang out with other dogs and kind of learning that way. So bring it down to the last question. How do you choose the right dog trainer approach? Okay. So some of the things that you need to kind of look for, because of course I can tell you all these different styles, but you want to start with your dog first and your dog's needs and desires. For instance, if you have a dog, just like I talked about, let's backtrack here. I talked about in-home training, private training, group classes. So the same thing with the training styles. You want to think about your dog and how your dog is. So for instance, if you have a German Shepherd that's really hyper, or that's really driven and stuff like that, you might want to use clicker training for more precision. Okay. Or you might want to use more positive reinforcement because he's great with food, like he's motivated by food, and so that's a great reward. So you want to kind of think about your dog. Or if you have a shy dog, you don't want to use electric collar training as well. Did I talk about that one?
I think we skipped e-collar. Yes. Let's dive into, let's touch on e-collar just for a second.
Oh my gosh, e-collar training. So e-collar training is basically electric collar that can either beep, it can buzz, or it can shock. And that one is great for dogs who go out of boundaries, like, running off from the yard and stuff like that. You can use it to kind of keep them in boundaries. So that training, what I would say, people do e-training, but you just want to think about the effects of any dog training and punishment. And the easiest way to put it, like I tell folks, if you have a dog and you're potty training them and you're yelling at them and screaming at them, it doesn't teach them anything but to go hide. The electric collar, there are trainers who use it, but like I said, if it's works for your family, it works for your family. You just want to figure out what's best.
Yeah.
And that, based on your dog's needs and desires. Also, you want to think about your goals for your dog for training, as well as it relates to the different training styles. So if your goal, for instance, is to have like a service dog, and they need to be nice and gentle and things like that. Not saying all the other training styles cause your dogs to be aggressive or anything like that, but maybe you want to use positive reinforcement because you want them to be bonded next to the human. So human-based relationship bonding and a little bit of positive reinforcement would be best, just based on the goal for your dog, which it would be service dog, would be those type of training styles. But just thinking about that ahead of time would be beneficial as well.
And I guess sort of thinking about like what challenge you're trying to take on type of thing. Like if it's puppy training or if they're separation anxiety, you're trying to train with that.
Exactly.
Or what challenge and what result you're looking for, and think about sort of how your dog is, like behavior and their personality, and just sort of think about like, those things and the results and what challenges you're working with when you're thinking about what types of training to seek out, right? So
exactly. And then the last thing would be costs. You want to take a look at your budget, depending on the type of training you choose. It could be costly. Of course, group classes are a little bit cheaper than private lessons. Of course, board and train's a little bit more expensive than private lessons or even group classes. So you want to think about your financial budget first and kind of put all these things like in a little pot and sort them out before you actually move forward with any type of training. But hopefully, going through these different training styles have helped folks through this little Facebook Live here, chatting about a few, and they're able to choose, a good method for their dog and their family. But again, positive reinforcement is usually the number one technique, and then relationship-based training. But again, if you work with a trainer, they kind of go through all of them in some form or another. It's just that usually they weigh heavy on whatever their training method is, which mine is positive reinforcement, but I do use some of the other ones as well. So, yeah.
No, that's good. And if people have more questions, they can put in the comments, or we'll put a link below in the comments. So if people will have dog training questions, they can join the free Facebook group for Down for Paws.
Absolutely.
If they have questions about what kind of training types, and also I'd definitely recommend, if you're thinking about what type of training types, also go back and watch last week's live where we talked about how to choose the best trainer for you, and sort of watch both. I think they pair really well together to sort of really figure out what course of action to take, whether you're dealing with a puppy or a more adult dog with challenges that you're trying to face, again, whether it's separation anxiety, reactivity, any other thing, or you just want to get them mentally stimulated and that sort of thing. Take a look at these two.
Take a look back on the lives, YouTube and stuff like that, and the videos pretty much piggyback off each other, so you could get a good glimpse of it all. But hopefully this live right here gave you guys plenty of stuff to think about. And if you guys want to reach me, again, at Down for Paws, Instagram, Facebook, in the comments, I'm here. And I will see you guys next week for another live topic.
All right, guys, we'll see you guys later. Bye.